Hello, welcome back to the Crafty Organizer. I'm Noreen Burke, and on this channel, I love bringing you ideas for getting organized, decluttering, doing DIYs and upcycles, and of course, anything crafty. So if that's the type of content you're interested in, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Today, we're going to talk about layouts and things to look for in kitchens. Whether you're remodeling, moving, buying a new house, whatever the reason, here's some things to look for as well as a quick history of how kitchens have evolved through the years. Let's get started. The kitchen we all know today actually came from a book by two sisters, Catherine and her sister Harriet Beecher Stowe. This was back in 1869, and it gave this amazing layout of how kitchens should be laid out. Now, this didn't become popularized for a while because most homes in the late 1800s still were just getting running water and electricity, so things became kind of slow to evolve into what we are familiar with. Back in 1889 is when the first Hoosier cabinet was introduced, and I have been wanting one of these forever. I think they're such a cool piece. Interesting story, I was traveling to see where I wanted to live in the late 80s, and I went to Mississippi, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a Hoosier cabinet. It was spectacular. Oak with the enamel counter that pulled out, it still had the sifter, and it was $80, and I thought, there's no way for me to get it home, and these are obviously really easy to get. I have yet to find one like that to this day, and the few that I have seen were not in nearly this pristine of condition, and they are certainly not anywhere near that price point that I found. So if I could go back in time, in my early 20s when I was in Mississippi, I would have snatched that Hoosier up and carried it with me for every move going forward. The idea of the Hoosier really did take off though, and this led to the popularity of cabinets. By the 1920s, most of the kitchens were getting these cabinets, and the rooms were getting smaller, which was ironic because we were getting more families into this space and sharing the responsibilities, which meant that we needed a lot more space for the things that were being stored in these kitchens. By the 30s, everyone had a kitchen, and so most households migrated into this room and used it as not only a prep area, but an eating space as well. By the 40s, the war took many women out of the home and put them into jobs. But what this did was actually give them information on how to do things a little bit more efficiently, and they brought this information back into the applications of how they were using their kitchens. This is a rental in my area of a 1940s kitchen, and then if you didn't know, the kitchen I have in my home is 1940s. It's very basic, but it is functional. It just doesn't have any of the bells and whistles that would come in these later kitchens. The 50s brought about not just the baby boom, but also prosperity, which led to colorful kitchens. As you can see, there was a lot more expression and fun that came into these kitchens. But what you see in these kitchens is pretty well going to stay the same for the next 40 years. We don't get a lot of new technology that comes in. The first introduction of something that's really different comes about in the end of the 70s. We'll talk about that in a second. The 60s modernized things just a little bit, but it also brought about the colors of amber and avocado. I grew up in a kitchen that had these green colors everywhere with a little bit of burnt orange. The 70s maintained these orange and avocado colors with the burnt orange, but also brought about a fun use of wallpapers and a lot of Formica counters. That became a very popular thing then. In the late 70s, the microwave oven became the new time-saving appliance to have. This was introduced and became so popular that by the mid-80s, half of the American kitchens that were new builds automatically came with a microwave oven. The 80s kitchen saw a shift from the avocado gold to more muted pastel colors. I remember my first kitchen had a lot of pinks and blues, and if you had an 80s kitchen, you probably had this very popular design. Popular designs for the 90s were granite countertops, tile floors, and then having the pots and pans hung decoratively so that you could see them. This looks almost identical to the home that I had in the mid to late 90s in Arizona. I actually had this big plant shelf, and it was a bear to climb up there to clean. Another popular thing in the late 90s was the George Foreman grill. This was launched in 1994. Let me know if you had one of these, if you still have one, and if you're still using one of these very popular George Foreman grills. The early 2000s is the kitchen style that I seem to like most. This became more of the whites, the creams, the farmhouse design, the wood countertops. This has been a very popular design, but most recently, the current trend for the 2010s to present is the bold, white, minimal style kitchens that's almost looking similar to the early kitchens where we just have shelves and not a lot out. So with this fun walk through time, what should you be looking for in kitchens? There are so many things to consider when you're looking at a kitchen. And again, this is to consider whether you're remodeling your kitchen, whether you just want to move things around and add some pieces, or if you're looking for a home to move into. Here are some things to look for to make sure your kitchen is as functional as possible. One of the first things to consider is the space between cabinets when you're walking through areas. A minimum is 36 inches for safety reasons. However, if you are building your home knowing that you're going to have someone that has a wheelchair, make sure you're checking the guidelines for your area because some of the widths are up to 48 inches as a requirement for the ADA laws. Obviously, looking at countertops to make sure that you have easy access to them and enough space to spread out and prepare your meals is important. But what about things like your cabinets? An issue I see so often is cabinets are not big enough to put plates in. This happens the most in apartments. They put in these cute upper cabinets to make it look big and spacious, but they're not even deep enough for a standard 12-inch plate. So go into these spaces with a measuring tape, and if you're looking at cabinets, measure so that you know the size to make sure that the things that you're storing in them will fit. Otherwise, what happens is these cute upper cabinets will only hold mugs, cups, or you'll end up only getting to store spices in them. And that means possibly putting up shelves or getting additional storage items to hold your plates. Another item to consider is your platters and your small appliances. If your kitchen space has a pantry, make sure those shelves are deep enough. This is another issue I see is they don't have deep shelves. They're only 12 inches, and a lot of appliances don't fit on those. So make sure you have a measuring tape. And we're going to talk about a list to put together at the end so that you are armed with exactly what you'll be looking for when designing or looking for a new kitchen. A big one that people forget about is where are you going to put your trash can? And oftentimes we also have something for composting and for recycling. So have that in mind when you're going in. If you're designing, creating something like this setup is absolutely wonderful. But have that idea of where those items are going to go when you're looking at a new space. This probably should have been number one on my list. Electrical outlets. My little kitchen, I have one plug where the refrigerator would be and one plug over by the stove. That's it. Oh my gosh. We do not run in kitchens that only have 4 things plugged in at any given time anymore. So I have a power strip that I'm always worried about overloading, and I'm always unplugging something to get something else plugged in. So be looking in your kitchen for plugs. The more plugs, the better. So when I'm looking at a space or when I'm going with a client, something I always have them do is open up every cabinet and try working around them. And the reason why I suggest this is so often once you do this, you'll see where there are little hiccups in a kitchen that you might not notice until you're trying to work in it. Like this example, in order for you to open up that dishwasher, you cannot have another drawer open, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but oftentimes you'll come up to these sorts of things where you're going to end up marring other cabinets. Or like the case of this apartment building where there was a sprinkler head, this renders this cabinet door useless because you can't open it. Or like this refrigerator door, anytime you open it, it's going to turn the light switch on and off, and it makes it impossible for you to actually activate that. This looks like a great countertop when you're there, but underneath that drawer is impossible to use. You'll never be able to see what's inside of it, meaning that you're always going to lose these things. Another issue is oftentimes, even if a kitchen was functioning, when they put on new handles, it no longer allows them to be functional. So consider the handles. Doing remodels, oftentimes we have a limited amount of space to fit things in, so we'll put it in, not factoring in the actual space that a door needs in order to function. When I remodeled a kitchen several years ago, we laid out tape on the floor. I wanted a sink in the corner. I wanted to look out 2 windows, and I just loved that. So on my floor plan, I set the stove in one spot and a dishwasher in the other. And as soon as we taped it out, I realized there was a huge mistake. I wanted to be able to stand at the sink so I could rinse things and put them in the dishwasher. Well, the original plan that I drew had the dishwasher right next to the sink, which meant, guess what? I had no place to stand because when the dishwasher was open, it took the standing spot. So we had to reconfigure, have a cabinet that was in between and have the dishwasher away so that I had space to stand, turn around, and put things in the dishwasher. But this wasn't something that I was thinking of until I was actually standing at the sink. So if you're planning out a kitchen, if possible at all, tape it out. Even if you're building, clear out the space, tape it out before you take final delivery of those cabinets, because that is the moment to really decide with the measurement of things opening how much space you'll actually have. Now let's talk about that list that would be so important to have. Go through your kitchen and start making notes of what works. What storage do you love having? What storage do you not like? What doesn't work? Those are the things to start writing down. Also take an inventory of the things that you have and start mock organizing it into your future cabinets so that you know whether you're going to have enough space or not. If you have so many electrical gadgets and the kitchen that you're looking at does not have storage for these things, it means that you'll be needing to add on additional storage cabinets like china hutches or storage cabinets to allow those things to be stored. So pre-planning, making a checklist of everything you have, everything you want, being mindful of what isn't working for you, and keeping a checklist of those things like where electrical outlets are will really help you to have a much more functional kitchen. So as you can see, we did not talk about this storage thing that's behind me today. I'm not happy with the stability of it, so I'm going to take it apart this weekend and remake it. But basically what it is, do you remember when I made the little can storage where it will slide around and you can have access to everything and then it closes back up? Well, this was a large version of that behind me, and I love the concept. But again, I'm not happy with the stability of it. So if you already hate that idea, please let me know in the comments below. I'll ditch it. But if you're intrigued at all, let me know. I'll rework it and find a way to make it easy to make, affordable, and sturdy for you. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope this helped you to narrow down some of the things to look for in future kitchens. I want to say thank you to my patrons who allow me to make these videos. If you're interested in helping to support this channel, my Patreon information is down in the description below. I will see you guys in just a few days. Bye.